Javier has worked as a bilingual CD in some of the best agencies in the world. He's worked at David&Goliath, Conill, Burnett, Havas, TDA Boulder, Upshot, Mistress, and many others. He's worked on Coca-Cola, Pepsi, McDonald's, Kellogg's, Nintendo, Allstate, Gatorade, Jim Beam, among others. Please give it up for Javier Osorio.
Hello, everybody. Well, Stacy already said that. My name is Javier Osorio. I'm a freelance creative director. And I live in Chicago. And 20 years ago, I was exactly where you are right now. I started in Miami at school in the spring quarter of 1998. It was very different. School was in Alton Road in a very weird building. It was kind of cool. We were like total of 60 students in the whole school, plus like 8 teachers, rum pipa, and the 2 dogs, fudge, applesauce. And it was different, but it was really cool, I think. Those 2 years at Miami School changed, I think, my life and my way of seeing the world. And today I want to share with you a little bit of what I learned in these 20 years of career. Not everything has to do with making ads, but a lot has to do with keeping the enthusiasm in this business, which is very difficult, and because it could be really, really rewarding, but it could be really, really painful. So I want to share with you those things, and then we can have a conversation about some of the stuff that I'm going to say. I'm not going to show resume or portfolio or my book. You can see it online. I just want to share things that I learned from my failures and my accomplishments. Okay. So this is the title of these things. And things that I learned in 20 years of career that have nothing to do with making ads, which is not really true. But I needed a catchy title. So the first one, don't look for great agencies. Look for great bosses. Let me get my cliff notes here. I know a lot of people that work in really, really cool award-winning agencies, a lot of friends, and they are incredibly miserable. And when I ask them, why are you miserable? You're in Goodby, why then? They say, I hate my boss. And yes, great agencies hire idiots. I mean, sometimes it doesn't have to be with talent. Sometimes great creative, very talented creative is a really bad boss. Sometimes an average creative can be a really good boss. So it's very important that you look for a good boss. A good boss will make you a better every day. A good boss will teach you, especially how to be a good boss. So if you're interviewing in an agency, I would recommend you to always ask who's gonna be your boss. And I'm not talking about the chief creative officer. I'm talking about your direct boss, your day-to-day boss. Never, ever, ever take a job without knowing who's gonna be your direct boss. That's a no-brainer. And I guess some people will find that the hard way. So I'm not drunk yet. No. The second one, savor the kool-aid, appreciate it, sip it, but never drink it. I work in like a million agencies so far, especially freelancing. You kind of like work in a lot of places, and I became some sort of like a kool-aid sommelier all these years. And every agency has their own kool-aid. I mean, every agency has their own philosophy, and there is nothing wrong to understand the philosophy of the place where you want to work. Not only to understand it, to apply it while you're working there, because that's how they're gonna measure you. They're gonna measure you against their philosophy and the way they do things, and that's how. But make sure that the agency philosophy or the agency kool-aid will never replace your own personal philosophy. Once you drink the kool-aid, the problem is that you start feeling that the agency is making you a favor for letting you be part of their cult or their community. And that's when the abuse starts. That's when you stay all night for the agency. That's when you put your life aside for the agency. And you have to make sure that wherever you're giving away to the agency, you're receiving something in compensation. It doesn't have to be money necessarily. It could be knowledge. It could be creative opportunities. But always make sure that there is a balance with what you're putting and what you're getting. If you don't do that, you're screwed, and you're gonna be a burnout in probably a few years. So that's another one. No, not going back. This is an interesting one. Quickly figure out if you're gonna play offense or defense. And this apply mostly for freelancers, but also apply for full-time people who work full-time in an agency. Some agencies will hire you to do the work that they don't wanna do, to do all that tedious projects that they don't wanna spend time and energy doing. And some agencies will hire you to do the work that they cannot do. Maybe you have special skills, maybe you're just more creative than them, maybe they just are so busy that they need somebody to pass the ball, to score the goals, but you need to figure out that really quick. There's nothing worse than going to an agency trying to score goals when they want you to be a goalkeeper. You're gonna become an obstacle, you're gonna become a pain in the ass, and you're not gonna last there too long. Also, in some agencies, they want you to demonstrate that you can play defense in order to put you in the offense. I remember there's a story, and it's kind of like absurd, but there was this intern, actually from Miami School, when I was working in an agency. I'm not going to mention the agency. He was very good, incredibly good, but he was very intense. We used to ask him to do a banner, simple banner ad, and he will bring like 20 options and experiential and stunts and a lot of stuff, but he never bring the basic banner that we needed to. And I don't know if because he can or he didn't want to, but initiative can play against you. And at some point during his internship, there was an opening for a junior writer, and I seriously considered hire him. But at some point, we decided not to because we knew that he wasn't going to be able to play goalkeeper, and we needed a goalkeeper by that time. So define your role and play accordingly. Don't play to impress, play to win. That's another way to put it. Next one. Oh, I did it. Your network is your most valuable asset that you will have. Your network and your reputation is the most valuable asset you will have. And you will see why I'm putting this later. Your portfolio and your awards will demonstrate that you have the skills and you have the talent. But your reputation is what's gonna put you inside the agency. Your portfolio will put your foot on the door, but your reputation will let you inside. If it only takes for one person, for the agency team, no matter what level, to frown when somebody mentions your name and you lost the gig. It could be a junior, but if they say your name and somebody inside the agency, kind of like, and it only takes somebody to say, oh, I know that guy, I know that girl, he's great, he's good, and you're in. That's a deal breaker. I always say that this business is an orgy in slow motion. In 10 years, everybody ended up working with everybody. So make sure that whoever you work with, there is satisfaction at the end. So that's build an network. It takes years, but also interact with as most people as you can from every level and from inside and outside the industry. It doesn't matter. I mean, the more people you know, the more connection you will have, the more opportunity you will have to get the job or the projects that you want to. Protect your innocence. important. And it's probably one of the most difficult things to have to do in this business. Um, it's really, Leo Burnett used to say that you had to see the world with a child's eye, and I totally agree with that, because in this business, it's pretty easy to lose perspective and become cynical. And I think that a lot of times, most people think that being cynical is kind of like a way to demonstrate that you're smart. I don't think so. I mean, I have to, you have to protect the ability to surprise yourself. Uh, when you lose that, you become insensitive, and pretty much you're denying yourself the pressure of being stupid. There's nothing more um, stimulating for the creative process than to let your mind or ease your mind from the need to be intelligent. That's when you make the unexpected connection that is the essence of um, creativity. So try, probably, yeah, the hardest thing to do is how to put mileage on your brain without affecting the innocence or your imagination. My only advice for that: never judge, always juggle. Keep a criteria, have a criteria, but keep it flexible. Um, that's the key. Never judge. Always, there is no wrong and there is no right. It's just different, and just play with that all the time. Don't make rules, or make them and break them, but don't become cynical. That's the worst thing that for me is the biggest disease of this business. Cynical people, they're not good, and you will find a lot. Believe me. Uh, then another one that I learned the hard way: don't be a referee and the player at the same time. And this is something that applies most when you're into a leadership position, onto a leadership role. Um, when I got promoted to ACD, to associate creative director, I'm pretty sure that I wasn't ready for that role. I think my conceptual skills were there. I think my strategic skills were there. I think my presentation skills were there, but my leadership skills were not there. Um, it took me a while to figure out that my job was not having my teams to solve problems the same way that I will solve them. And what I used to do all the time is do that. I used to work in parallel with them, and then we compare ideas at the end of the day, and I decide what was taken to the client. And surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, I was always ended up taking my ideas to the client. That was a perfect formula to demoralize a creative team, because I was making them feel like their ideas have no chance, no matter how good they were. And at some point, I kind of like realized that, and self-imposed a rule where I will never work in a project that I delegate to my teams. I'll just help them to find the right solution and give them the ammunition and the support to sell and produce the idea. So be careful. One of the biggest, the most difficult transitions is when you go for creative to creative director or associate creative director. It's a whole different game, and you need to put your ego and a lot of your ambition on the side. So that's for me is a golden rule, and it works like a charm. When you give people their space and you help them kind of like to do their own thing, great things happen. Um, Next one, learn how to put the pencil down. This is also another interesting one. I mean, there is this myth that says that you have to kill 10,000 ideas to get a good one. I agree with that, but I have issues with that, because most people think that you have to kill those 10,000 ideas at once. And that's why you see the agency creative departments at 11 p.m. full of creatives. Everybody's killing 10,000 ideas. The problem is that, yeah, if you work all night, I have no doubt that you're going to come out with one or two great ideas. But the next day, you're going to be a piece of shit. And that's when you need to be sharper. Once a good idea is born, you have to craft it like a master. A good idea, bad execute, is a waste of time, and even worse, it's a waste of a good idea. So learn to manage your energy. Uh, Make sure that you're gonna have enough rest to finish what you started and to finish with flying colors. I've seen people burn out in this business in 5 years because they're pretty much overworked to death. So um, I guess this business rest is as important as effort. So learn to manage that, especially in the first years of your career. I've seen that crash and burn like many, many, many times. I was one of those until I learned how to manage that. Always keep the first idea. Oh, beautiful first idea. I love it. There is another myth that says that the first idea, you have to kill the first idea. I mean, the first idea is not the good one. The first idea is the obvious one. I agree, but the first idea has something that is probably the most innocent one and the most intuitive one. So the first idea is probably the closest one where you're gonna be to put yourself in the shoes of the audience. I'm sorry. So I have. It's probably the most obvious, but it's probably the most honest. So keep it. For me, the trick is not obviously. Actually, some of the best stories are probably very, very simple and obvious ideas. And the key for me is on the execution. Don't stay with the first execution. Take that first and simple and honest and straightforward ideas and execute it in a million ways. That for me is where the magic is. Don't, for me, sometimes the how is even more important than the what. So don't keep the first idea, but never keep the first execution. Do it in a million ways and unexpected ways. Never escape, always pursue. Pursue, yeah. This is another classic. When I interview people, when I used to work at full time, and I used to interview people for my creative team, the first thing that I try to find out is they were coming escaping from the place where they work, or they were pursuing something in the agency where I was. And that's typical. A lot of people took these escape jobs. I took escape jobs, these jobs that you take while you find something better. And that's very dangerous because pretty much you waste a lot of time because you're not where you want to be. And then it's very bad for your reputation. You will never put the enthusiasm and the effort that the people who hire you will expect from you if you take a job just meanwhile. And at the end of the day, I mean, when you leave, there is always going to be a bad feeling on both sides. And it's going to damage your reputation because you will never do a good job there. So my advice is that instead of taking while I get something better job, go freelance. I mean, that's very valid. And freelancing, you kind of like figure out if you like the place, and then you do whatever you want to stay there. It's a good trial and error formula. And the final one, and this applies mostly for people who come from a different background, don't hide behind your culture. The way I wrote it here is embrace and take advantage of your culture, but never use it to define your identity. And when I graduated from the school, the Hispanic market was it was the beginning of the Hispanic market boom. And I always wanted to stay away from the Hispanic market because when I guess at the time I thought that if I get there, I will get trapped in that niche. And it was going to be really hard for me to jump to a different market, to a different country, or to do something different than Hispanic advertising. I fell in the trap, mostly because the best offers when I graduated came from Hispanic agencies. It was a lot of like demand for creatives at the time in that market. And I'm not gonna complain. Actually, I'm very proud because I was able to do very good work in Hispanic agencies, work that kind of like elevated the category that at that time it was very underrated. And even I got a lot of awards from the Hispanic market. But I always try to keep my work very neutral. I never wanted to be the Venezuelan copywriter or the Latino copywriter. I wanted to be the creative who happens to be Venezuela, or the creative who happens to be Latino. And yes, I have a sensibility and a cultural background that give me a different point of view. But at the end of the day, I'm just making stories that connect brands with humans. And that sensibility maybe give me a different way to tell the stories, or different material to put connections that maybe somebody from a different culture will not. But at the end of the day, I never wear the Venezuelan hat, or I try to never wear the Venezuelan hat to try to sell myself, or to try to be different, or to try to be noticed. Uh, I guess my point here is, don't try to wear the poncho to impress, because at the end of the day, it's going to become your straitjacket. So uh, use your culture, but don't let the culture use you. That will be my other and final advice. So, any questions?
What's the biggest advice you could give us in order to be successful at a job interview and to really sell our portfolio?
I noticed, actually, I gave you guys an assignment. One thing, it's kind of like cool that all the portfolios have a lot of like case studies, but it's really hard, or sometimes you don't have time to see a whole case study to see your idea. So have a good combination of ideas that are really easy to get. I mean, the first thing that I want to know when I'm interviewing a junior is they can write or they can design. Obviously, I am assuming that they're coming from a school that they can, but at that point, I need writers and designers and thinkers too. So have a lot of work that will show those skills. If you're a writer, put work with headlines, quick headlines, quick copy, outdoor. Even if it feels traditional, that's okay. I mean, that will demonstrate that you can write, and you can design, or you can take photos. Then, yeah, you can put some case studies that can show your bigger thinking, how can you manage like detail and that kind of stuff. But make a good mix. One of the biggest mistakes that I've seen is that all the portfolios is full of case studies. And sometimes you see that and you just, I don't have time for this, and you pass. And the other thing for the interview, just be yourself. I mean, don't avoid cookie cutter answers. And bring your personality. I think your book is going to tell me if you have the skills and you have the talent, and you know how to craft stories for brands. But the interview is what's going to tell me if you're going to fit, if your personality is going to fit on the company, on the culture of the company. So try to the interview to be more, keep the conversation more about your personality and who you are and what you like and what you don't like, and obviously in a very professional way, but balance that. Have a book that tells you that you're kick-ass, that you can do kick-ass content, and then an interview that will tell me that you're a nice person and you deserve to be on the creative department.
So I really liked your question about, not your question, your slide about offense and defense. I put a little star here, like, how would you elaborate on what each role really looks like, offense, defense, goalkeeper, etc., within like an agency? Like when you spoke about the goalkeeper, you talked about somebody that like brings all these like crazy ideas and doesn't do what you actually ask. I was wondering if you can elaborate at all.
The first thing I identify when I get into an agency to freelance is they want me to do the crap or they want me to do the cool stuff. And you have to assume it. I mean, nobody likes to do the crap, but if they're paying you for that, fine, I'll just do it. But I've been in situations where, because I wanted to impress, they want me, okay, you have to do this radio. And I don't do the radio and start doing the TV with the cool teams. And then I have an angry creative VP telling, where is my radio? And yeah, but I got this really cool TV spot. I don't give a shit. I am paying you to do a radio. So identify that first. I learned after my fourth agency, I figured that out. That will make your life way, way easier. I mean, solve problems. That's your biggest challenge. Identify what's the problem that you have to solve. You solve it. Then you can impress. I mean, once you write the radio, okay, go and kind of like tell the creative teams or the cool creative teams that you want to do the TV with them. But make sure that you understand your role and play it, like I said, play to win, not to impress. There is a lot of people trying to impress, and maybe you don't want to be impressed as a boss. I mean, or there is time to impress, there is a time to solve. So learn to manage that. I mean, it takes a while, but
Javi just spoke from truth. I've hired, when I was just at Leo Burnett alone, under 300 freelancers in 2 years. Javi was one of the few people that did ask me, what is this assignment? Who is my boss? Tell me the project deliverables. So that he actually does do. So I wanted to say that.
it's nothing wrong with enthusiasm to want to do, but make sure that you identify what are the expectations and fulfill those expectations and then surpass them. But don't go the wrong way because that's gonna make your life miserable.
And so if you are a junior somewhere and you've been there for a while and you want to move up, is it better to move up within the company or to find a job somewhere else where they'll hire you for a better? Because maybe if you're junior, they'll just hire you for junior. And
Yeah.
if you want to...
No, great question. You have to play by ear sometimes. I mean, you have to see if there is opportunity. It has to do a lot with who's your boss. But for my experience, the money increase comes from lateral, not lateral, but like moving from agency to agency. That's when you can negotiate and have a little more leverage to negotiate salary. Inside the agency, yeah, but it's smaller. I mean, it takes longer to make more money. But you have to be careful because if you move only for money, you may get stuck in a really
I meant
bad
more
place.
the title. Because sometimes getting a name change will get you hired more easily. But sometimes if you stay in the same place, it's harder to get your title
It's
improved.
all gonna depend on how many openings are inside. You have to understand the structure of your creative department because you may be very talented, but there is no space on the team for an ACD or for a senior, or there is no budget. You're gonna have to move somewhere else. If you see the opportunity within, try to do it. If you're happy with your boss, key. Be happy with your boss. I mean, and if you have a good boss, try to stay there with him as long as you can. Believe me, they will take you with you if they move around. I mean, you see that a lot in the business. Like people kind of like taking their own people everywhere. But you have to be very aware of how the structure of your creative department works and move accordingly. There is nothing wrong to go somewhere else. I mean, that's part of this business. But do the balance. See what are you putting at risk and what are you gonna get. My only thing with the money usually happens when you move around. It's sad, but it's the way it is.
A lot of us are getting ready in March to start interviewing, and you gave us the tip of asking who your direct boss is going to be. So if there's any other insights or any kind of questions that we should know, ask and things we should know before we accept a position?
I think usually your future boss is going to interview you. He may not tell you that he's going to be your future boss, but ask, are you going to be my boss? Who's going to be my boss? And then ask outside. Try to find somebody who used to work with that person. With LinkedIn, you can kind of like do some good crossing data and then ask, who's that person? How he is or how she is. See the work. But I guess the best source is going to be the people who work with that person directly, or even in the interview. You will notice. I think it's really easy to feel when there is no chemistry. That's the first thing that you notice, and don't Don't take a job saying, oh, I might start working with this hack, but then I'm going to be moved and work with David Droga. That may happen or may not. So be happy with your boss. That's very important. Thank you.